You're a hornet, and you've just found something worth taking. A beehive, full of honey, full of larvae, and seemingly undefended. For a hornet, this is about as close to hitting the jackpot as it gets. You move in closer, and for a moment everything feels exactly like it always does. But then the air changes. Before you can process what's happening, thousands of bees pour out of the entrance and swarm your entire body at once. You try to sting, but there's no room to move. You try to fly, but your wings are pinned. The mass around you begins to vibrate with a heat you've never felt before, and within minutes, your body starts shutting down from the inside. You didn't actually stumble into a defenseless hive. You walked straight into a trap that's been perfected over millions of years, and you never stood a chance. But to understand why bees do this, you first need to understand what a hornet actually represents to a beehive. A single hornet scout is not just an inconvenience. It's the beginning of a potential massacre. Hornets are significantly larger than bees, heavily armored, and capable of killing dozens of bees per minute with their mandibles alone. When a hornet scout finds a beehive worth attacking, it releases a pheromone signal that marks the location for the rest of its colony. Within hours, a full raiding party can arrive and systematically destroy the entire hive, killing every bee inside and taking the honey and larvae back to feed their own colony. One scout, thousands of deaths. The bees have learned over millions of years that letting a hornet leave alive is not an option. So when a scout approaches, the bees don't panic. They wait. They let it come close enough that retreat becomes impossible. And then they act together in a way that no individual bee could manage alone. Hundreds of bees pour out of the hive entrance and swarm the hornet's body within seconds, forming a tight, vibrating mass around it. This is what's known as a bee ball, and it's one of the most precisely coordinated defensive behaviors in the entire insect world. What happens inside that ball is where it gets interesting. Every bee in the cluster begins vibrating their flight muscles rapidly, not to fly, but purely to generate heat. Each bee alone produces only a small amount of warmth, but packed together in their hundreds, the temperature inside the ball rises fast. Within minutes, the core of the cluster reaches around 46 to 47 degrees Celsius. That might not sound extreme, but it sits just above the hornet's maximum survival temperature and just below the bee's own limit. The gap between life and death in this situation is roughly 1 degree. The bees know exactly where that line is, and they hold the temperature right at it. You are the hornet, and you are now completely still, not because you've given up, but because there is physically nothing left you can do. The bees around you aren't stinging. For the most part, they don't need to. The heat alone is enough. Your muscles stop responding. Your organs begin to fail, and the bees hold the ball in place, continuing to vibrate until the job is done. The whole process takes somewhere between 20 minutes and an hour. It is, by any measure, one of the more unpleasant ways to go, which, given that the alternative was letting you signal your entire colony to come and destroy everything they've built, feels about right. What makes this even more remarkable is that no bee is in charge of this process. There is no commander giving the signal to form the ball, no coordinator monitoring the temperature, no individual bee deciding when it's over. The entire behavior emerges from thousands of bees, each responding to the same chemical signals and physical cues at the same time. When the alarm pheromone is released, they swarm. When the temperature reaches the right level, they maintain it. When the threat stops moving, they hold position. It functions like a single, highly efficient organism, but it's made entirely of individuals who have no awareness of the overall plan they're executing. And the bees aren't just generating heat. Research has shown that carbon dioxide levels inside the bee ball also rise significantly as the cluster breathes, adding a second layer of stress to the hornet that compounds the thermal damage. The bee ball isn't just an oven. It's a sealed chamber that gets hotter and more suffocating with every passing minute. If you're the kind of person who thinks insects are simple creatures running on pure instinct with no real sophistication, this is the part where that idea gets a little harder to hold on to. Once the hornet stops moving entirely, the bees disperse. The body is removed from the area, and the hive returns to normal as if nothing happened, because for them, nothing unusual did. This is just Tuesday. But the system only works if the bees respond fast enough. If a hornet scout manages to escape and release its marking pheromone before being intercepted, the outcome changes completely. The full raiding party that arrives is too large and too coordinated for the bee ball defense to handle at scale. A handful of hornets working together can outpace the bee's ability to form balls around each individual attacker, and the hive falls. The entire defensive strategy depends on one thing: catching the scout before it can communicate. Miss that window, and the trap becomes a death sentence for the colony instead. This is why the bees have evolved to be extraordinarily sensitive to the presence of hornets near the hive entrance. Guard bees stationed at the entrance are constantly monitoring the air for the chemical signatures of approaching hornets, and the alarm response, once triggered, happens in seconds. The speed of the response is the entire defense. A bee ball that forms 30 seconds too late is a bee ball that forms around a hornet that has already done its job. You are the hornet again for just a moment. Somewhere out there, another scout from your colony is looking for the same thing you were looking for. It will find a hive that looks undefended. It will move in closer, and the air will change. The bees have been doing this for a very long time, and they are very good at it.